Many working individuals may initially find the idea of salary negotiations overwhelming, awkward, or uncomfortable. To some, it may even seem like they're risking their offer by asking for a higher salary. We're going to explore a little bit about negotiations, especially if there are any times where a candidate shouldn't do it. Hey, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Preston, and I'm a professional recruiter in the technology industry. In today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about a specific aspect of the hiring process, specifically one of the later stages, salary negotiations. So as a recruiter, I regularly help candidates and organizations come to salary agreements, and it should go without saying that this is one of the most important parts of the process for both parties that are involved. But before we get started, it's worth mentioning that not all candidates should consider salary negotiations. Lower level hourly positions don't traditionally have much, if any, wiggle room, but managers of higher level, more experienced full-time positions expect for candidates to come in with a salary range, so it's important to think about it before going into an interview and especially before accepting any offers. In today's video, we're going to explore a little bit about negotiations, especially if there are any times where a candidate shouldn't do it. But before we get started, please consider a like, subscribe, click that bell. It really means a lot to a fellow recruiter. Let's talk about salary negotiations. In today's competitive landscape, it's more common today than ever before. A survey conducted by Robert Half found that 70% of the managers that they polled expected their candidates to negotiate their salary. Similarly, a job fight study found that 60% of millennial candidates surveyed had asked for a salary increase in the previous year. But that said, a Glassdoor study found that the average American could be earning around $7,500 more per year than their current annual base salary. So with that in mind, it's important that we spread the word so more candidates and employees start to think about salary negotiations more carefully. Many working individuals, especially from the younger generations, may initially find the idea of salary negotiations overwhelming, awkward, or uncomfortable. To some, it may even seem like they're risking their offer by asking for a higher salary. But the truth is that negotiating your salary not only has obvious financial benefits, but it also helps solidify your value in the role in the organization. After all, even the best intentioned companies want to save as much money as possible. It's likely they are not presenting you with their best absolute offer. It is not difficult to negotiate your salary. If the company has already extended an offer, they are already interested in hiring you and should be happy and more than willing to work with you to come to some sort of an agreement. Since it takes time and money to interview candidates and they don't want to miss out on valuable talent, it is unlikely that a company will retract an offer after attempting to negotiate your salary. If they do, you may have dodged a bullet. It could indicate a potentially toxic work environment. That's not to say that offers are never rescinded as a result of a candidate attempting to negotiate their salary, but this is usually a result of the way in which the candidate presents the proposition. If they handle themselves poorly or in an abrasive manner, or the candidate displays behavior that doesn't line up with the company's work culture, they may consider rescinding an offer. So with that in mind, let's look at the times that's appropriate to negotiate your salary and how to go about actually doing it. When should you negotiate your salary? You should prepare for the salary negotiations well in advance of applying for jobs. It's important to do research on your desired role and its average compensation. Using websites like Glassdoor and Salary.com can be helpful in finding and comparing roles and their salary ranges. Having a desired number in mind before you even start applying to jobs can help you narrow down your search dramatically, as you won't waste time on the roles outside of your range. When you start to receive offers, it's best to take some time, even up to a day or two, to consider it. Even if you're happy with the offer, are you sure you haven't undervalued yourself? Compare the current offer to the research you've done to see how much more money you could be asking for. Then come back to the table with a competitive but realistic proposal. Consider also that companies and managers are used to salary negotiations and typically plan and budget for it before they begin the search for candidates. So the chances are high that the offer that they presented is in the mid-range of what they'd be prepared to pay you. To reiterate, it is rare and unlikely that a company will balk at your attempts to negotiate, especially to the point of offer retraction. They may agree to your desired salary or work with you to come to an agreeable middle ground. Similarly, it is unlikely that an employer will see you as greedy. If anything, they may appreciate your initiative and respect your ability to effectively negotiate. Finally, it's also important to note that you shouldn't rely on promotions and raises to increase your overall salary. If you have the opportunity to negotiate during the onboarding process, do it. It could be some time before you get a raise or the chance to renegotiate, and since promotional raises will be based on your initial salary, they'll always be lower than if you just had negotiated initially. Additionally, many organizations have limits on how much a raise can be, and when they can be given out. They are simply unreliable and should be considered bonuses on top of your initial pay rate. So with all that said, there are actually some rare specific times when you should consider avoiding salary negotiations. I've come across a few stories in which someone's accepted a salary immediately without negotiation. There are times when this is appropriate, but once you've accepted a salary offer, there's usually no going back. It's typically considered unprofessional and impolite to attempt to negotiate a salary after already accepting an offer. Therefore, I advocate for doing salary research beforehand and taking at least one day to consider an offer based on that research. It prevents impulsively accepting an offer before thoroughly considering it. However, there are certainly situations where you won't be in a great position to renegotiate for any number of reasons. When jobs were hard to find at the height of the pandemic, candidates had very little bargaining power. Similarly, if you've been unemployed for a significant amount of time, it may be in your best interest to accept an offer in order to establish some income and worry about renegotiating later. If you're employed, you may consider asking for a salary renegotiation if your research turns up that you could be making significantly more. However, a small 5 to 10% increase may not be worth bringing up until an official promotion or a raise down the line. Consider benefits beyond salary. Before we conclude, there's one last thing worth mentioning. If a company isn't willing to negotiate your salary, there are other things to consider, such as benefits. Perhaps in lieu of increasing your starting salary, they would be willing to give you more paid time off or another form of non-cash compensation. Remember, most of the time, the worst that they can say is no. If the company balks at your attempt to negotiate, you may need to reconsider how you approach asking, or you may have dodged a particularly toxic work, company, or environment. Either way, if you have questions about the negotiation process or need help with it yourself, I suggest reaching out to a recruiter for help. Do you have anything else to add to the conversation? I'd love to hear from you directly. Be sure to leave a comment down below. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please consider like, subscribe, click that bell. It helps out and means a lot to a fellow recruiter. Feel free to also follow me at Preston_Park for more daily behind the scenes content. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.